The number of industrial establishments that worked according to the orders of the commanders increased by 64% in 1920, while the number of enterprises working on private, i.e., decentralized, orders fell by two-thirds. The number of enterprises working on the free market amounted to only 7.9% compared to 1918. These were mainly small food processing establishments. In accordance with the general line of economic policy of the Soviet government during the Civil War and in order to concentrate all material resources for the organization of defense, on November 30, 1918, the Council of Workers and Peasants' Defense was established by decision of the All-Russian Central Executive Committee. The Defense Council was granted full rights in the matter of mobilizing the country's forces and resources in the interests of defending the gains of the socialist revolution. The party of Lenin and Stalin resolved the tasks of economic construction on the basis of strengthening the new, comradely discipline of the working people in the conditions of military communism, through persistent and systematic work to educate the socialist attitude to labor and the means of production. Simultaneously, the party set the task for the working class to master the art of managing production, to use the experience of the old-school specialists. The only source of cash for all state-owned enterprises was the provision for estimates. The enterprises had to receive advances on account of their estimates according to the resolution of the bodies of the Supreme Council of National Economy. The products produced by all state enterprises were to be registered in the relevant departments of the Supreme Economic Council or, where appropriate, in the district or local bodies. Immediate release of products by the enterprises themselves was allowed only to the extent prescribed by the instructions of the Supreme Council of National Economy. The bodies of the Supreme Council of National Economy were to issue goods to the enterprise under orders without their payment. All kinds of cash receipts of enterprises were levied in the revenue of the Treasury. This order of non-monetary services extended to transport. Since January 1, 1919, state enterprises and their economic operations have been exempted from taxes, fees and duties. All kinds of arrears were cancelled. In particular, the system of contributions of enterprises to the Social Insurance Fund was abolished. Appropriations for this purpose were provided for by special estimates from public funds. The Ninth Congress of the Party, March 1920, noted the successful completion of the nationalization of large-scale industry. The Congress, however, believed that the form of industrial organization was transitional, since the unification of enterprises took place according to the existing nationalized trusts. This has turned the industry into a series of powerful vertical associations that are economically isolated from each other and only at the top of the bound by the Supreme Council of the National Economy (VKP)(b) in resolutions and decisions of congresses, conferences and plenums of the Central Committee, Part I, p. To guide certain industries under the Supreme Council of the National Economy, departments, committees, centers and commissions were established. For example, the Chemical Department of the Supreme Council of National Economy directed 22 main offices and centers: Glavtsment, Glavrezen, Glavbumaga, Glavtabak, Centralgir, Centrazar, Centrasport, etc. The Mining Department, Glavuigol, Glavtorf, Glavzolodo, Glavgawalorazvedka, etc. The Food Department, Glavmug, Glavkonditor, Glavmoloko, Glavchai, etc. In total, the Supreme Economic Council united 71 commanders. In addition to the branch departments, the VSNKH also included functional departments and various commissions. For example, a Department of Raw Materials that was in charge of planning the supply of raw materials. Production Commission, which supervised the organization of production. Commission of Use, which took into account all resources and planned their distribution, etc. Glavki directly established for each enterprise a production plan, a supply plan, and a plan for the sale of finished products. The enterprises had to receive materials, raw materials, fuel, etc., only on the orders of the central bodies. Such centralization of management created the disunity of enterprises on the ground, in cities, provinces, regions, districts, deprived them of independence, extremely complicated maneuvering by material means. With a view to eliminating the centralization of the economic activities hindering economic activity, the Ninth Congress of the party gave this directive. The organizational task is to preserve and develop vertical centralism along the line of the commanders, to combine it with horizontal subordination of enterprises along the lines of economic regions, where enterprises of different industries and of various economic values are forced to eat the same sources of local raw materials, vehicles, labor, etc. Along with giving more independence to local economic organizations, it is necessary to increase the direct economic interest of the local population in the results of industrial activity, IBID, p. 340. On the basis of this directive of the Ninth Party Congress, the regional economic bodies, Sapnarkazi, were established, uniting the provinces, districts and districts remote from the center and differing in their specific economic conditions. These regional economic councils received extensive powers in the direct management of local economic life. They had the right to adjust the economic plan in the process of its execution, to introduce into the plans changes resulting from the circumstances of the industrial activities of the region, for example, the transfer of raw materials, labor, etc. In the field of organization of industrial management, the Congress issued a directive to establish complete and unconditional unity in workshops and shops, to proceed to unity in the management departments and to reduce colleges in the middle and upper levels of the administrative and production apparatus. IBID, p. 341. The policy of the party and of the Soviet government to strengthen discipline and unity of command in the management of socialist enterprises met the unanimous support of the working class. Only a few groups of backward workers who did not pass through the rigorous school of struggle and did not understand the importance of discipline tried to defend the boundless collegiality, harmful rallies. A typical expression of the moods of these elements were anarcho-syndicalist tendencies that ignored the leading role of the party as the vanguard of the class, opposing the interests of individual groups of workers to the interests of the state. At the Ninth Congress of the party, with such a kind of demagogy, the so-called group of democratic centralism spoke. The Congress rebuffed the anti-party group of democratic centralism that opposed the one-man management and personal responsibility of directors in industry and defended the vast collegiality and irresponsibility in the direction of industry. The main role in this anti-party group was played by Sapronov, Ozinsky, V. Smirnov. They were supported at the Congress by Rykov, Tomsky. History of the CPSU, B. Short Course, p. 229. To build a communist society, the working class must use all the achievements of science. He must attract and use the bourgeois specialists, having surrounded the honest representatives of the old school with attention and care, creating for them an environment in which they could work no worse, but better than under capitalism. This question was posed by Lenin in the first period, when a huge mass of bourgeois specialists and officials led an open counter-revolutionary policy of sabotage. During the Civil War, when the exploiters fiercely fought against Soviet power, the party's policy in using bourgeois specialists was to get them to work for the benefit of socialist construction, cutting off all counter-revolutionary encroachments, ruthlessly punishing for treason and betrayal. This was the question of all categories of specialists, in industry, in cooperation, in the army, and so on. Confirming the party's policy in using specialists and involving them in the management of enterprises, the Congress issued a directive on attracting people from the working class who are capable of performing organizational work in production. Production propaganda set as its task such organization of the matter, so that every worker knew the role and place of his enterprise in the general system of socialist economy. For this purpose, general meetings of plant workers, the organization of courses for industrial managers, and so on were used. For the nationalized enterprises, a new control procedure was introduced. It was carried out by control commissions of enterprises that were to collect, systematize and submit all data relevant to the progress of enterprises and submit them to the control departments of their production union. Civil war and intervention heavily affected the state of the national economy of the Soviet Republic. The shortage of fuel, raw materials, food, supply disruptions due to transport disruption, a general frustration of the enterprises, the wear and tear of machinery and equipment, the reduction of skilled personnel of workers and technical personnel, etc., all resulted in a catastrophic drop in production in the main industries. In 1920, the gross output of the industry of the Soviet Republic in value terms did not reach even the sixth part of the pre-war level of production.